can I stay with any of you guys tonight?
You scared? Are you really scared of ghosts?
Yeah. Well, they're bullshit.
Have you ever been hurt by a ghost? Do you know anyone who's ever been hurt by a ghost?
No, it's all a load of nonsense. But I've seen a ghost.
Where?
In the same room, like 4 years ago. I went to bed and there was a dude's face in the window looking at me.
You sure that wasn't just a dude?
No, just caught a glimpse of it. It was like...
Yeah, that'd be way better.
It was a dead dude's head. I caught a glimpse.
How do you know he was dead?
Looked minging and haggard.
How?
He looked like he was all wrinkly and pale.
Okay.
So I climb a ladder into bed. I used to sleep in the loft. Climb up there. Kind of turn around in my bed. I glimpsed him. I was like, what the hell was that? And I'm under the covers. I was like, that was... Ooh.
So, like, this wasn't even on the ground floor. This is a window up.
The top window.
Okay.
So
He does live on the ceiling.
There couldn't have been anyone there because it's too high. Then I was like, I tried to be all manly about it. I was like, well, it's pitch black in here. And the moon was like coming through. I was like, I'm going to look again. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to look again.
Yeah, because that's manly to look again.
Like, you want to just be like,
Oh, I'll look a ghost in the face. I don't care.
Yeah. So I was just like,
Through a window?
so I had the covers. I was like, yeah. I saw him again. I was like,
You did not.
yeah, saw him again. Saw him twice.
Why didn't you get
What did
out?
you do?
I went to sleep. And then for the next couple of weeks, I
I
tried
was so scared. I fell asleep.
For the next couple of weeks, I tried to be in bed before the sun went down because it was less scary. And when it already had gone down, I would climb the ladder with my eyes closed and feel my way into bed and then get under the covers and be like, ah.
And that makes
I did
sense
that
in
for
your
about
head
2
that
weeks.
that's going to protect you.
Dude, covers protect you from ghosts, don't they?
I guess as long as you believe it.
It's
Right.
like you'd rather be ignorant than find out what it actually was.
Why
Seriously.
do people think that? Like, why do people think that, like,
so stupid.
sheets protect you from ghosts when ghosts are, like, made from sheets? Like, they take sheets off.
Hey, has anything bad happened to you since you dug up the saint in your front yard?
No. Well, I was nauseous this morning.
Hey.
Any ghosts?
No, nothing so far. I think I'm. Well, I don't want to say I'm in the clear, but
Should probably explain what the hell you guys are talking about.
okay so far. Okay, so Monday morning, came into the office and I was very conveniently paying my electric bill online. Thank you, City of Austin. And I thought I'm going to check my usage and just see what's going on this month because I don't ever pay attention to that kind of stuff. It's something I've never done and I would never do. And I was looking through my water usage and I used I don't know if it's gallons or what the
Yeah, it's gallons.
Gallons. I typically use about 3,500 gallons a month. And this month, in the month of April, I had already racked up 17,000 gallons. And I was like, oh.
You were drinking a lot of water.
Yeah, I was like, well, great. You know? So I ran home, walked all around my house, crawled up into my crawl space, looked around, couldn't find a leak anywhere. And I called a plumber. And the plumber came out, and he found that the pipe in my front yard at a 45-degree bend had broken, severed. And so he had to dig this 4-foot by 4-foot hole in my front yard. And while he was down there repairing this pipe, next to the fucking broken pipe, next to the break, was a prayer card for I don't remember what it was called, but it was Our Lady of Fatima. I think maybe
it
what
was.
It was called. And it was laminated and sitting next to the break. And so he handed it to me and he goes, look at this. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. I wonder, it's had to have been there for 30, 40 years. Probably not that much longer because it was PVC. I don't know how long they've used it. Mm-hmm. But it was in there for a while. And I took it out, and I was like, huh. And I took it out to show Griffin because she was out working somewhere. And when she came home, I showed it to her. And the plumber filled in the hole and went on his way. And then I was actually talking to Gus and Martha about it at the same time. And they both at the same time said, you put that back, right? And I was like, why would I put it back? And they were both like, well, now you're going to die.
Yep.
And Burnie has convinced me that was there to ward off a demon.
Yep.
And that now that my protection is gone, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
If I'm a demon and there's some kind of ward put in the ground to keep me off the premises or whatever, I'm going to make a pipe leak right at that spot.
Yeah.
So that the dopes will dig it up and get rid of it.
Convenient.
Now you've got, there's a straight path from your house to hell, essentially.
Gus goes, you remember how Poltergeist started, right?
Yeah.
Gonna open your refrigerator and Zool's gonna be in there.
And then
I was like, then we dug up one of the bushes in the front yard, found some Indian bones, got rid of those.
Stupid old Indian bones. I told him that night I thought about going to the Mexican meat market and buying a dead skinned goat and throwing it in his front yard where the hole was. But I didn't want to track wild animals
And
over
then
there.
fucking Gavin aimed me at 3:30 in the morning that night to tell me that he had just woken up from a nightmare, and it was so real and vivid he had to tell us about it. And it was he and Griffin and I were in the house, and a demon was trying to get us, and he was able to escape to the studio, but we couldn't get out of the house in time, and that he felt terrible because he was safe in the studio and we were trapped in there with the monster.
Well, you know what that means the monster's going to attack when Gavin comes to visit.
Yep.
Yeah,
So don't
maybe.
ever let him come back.
Another
Yeah,
piece of
you
advice
do.
for someone buying a house. First question you should ask is, does this community have a homeowners association?
And is this house haunted?
Really?
Well, they do have to tell you.
Did you what?
I think so. You feel like, is this house haunted? They have to.
I want to go look at houses.
And also,
now
has
and ask.
anybody ever been murdered in this house? You should always ask those questions too.
Do the walls bleed at night?
You can ask that.
Just look at me like I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah, you have to. If someone's been killed there or died in the house, they have to report that, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if it's
If
like
you ask.
natural causes? Do they still have to report that?
I would think so.
I don't know. It's a good question.
I mean, my old house was like 100 years old, so I assumed lots of people had died in it. I think
Yeah, probably.
You take that up when you buy an older place.
I bought a place in Zilker years ago. I don't own that house anymore.
Yeah.
But it was like apparently like one of the first houses. It was a hunting lodge that had been expanded over the years. But it was built in it was built in 1932, and I love that house. It was really cool. But the fucking realtor passed along this photo to me and handed to me. He's like, yeah, this is a house. It's like, it's my house, but it's in the fucking woods, which was really weird for Zilker Park now, you know, that it's because it's all surrounded by these other little houses, but it's just my house in the middle of these woods. And it's one of those old square photos because it's from like the late 30s or 40s. And it's real thick paper. And it's my fucking house, all these woods. And then this fucking kid on the front porch, just into like one of those little like toddler outfits, and it's just this kid is just staring into the camera like this. And it's one of those photos, I guess we had to hold still for a little bit longer, so he's kind of blurry too. I was like, "Why the fuck did you give me this photo?" I just like now I'm gonna go to sleep and think about this fucking kid running around my house.
What is the weirdest, like, coincidental thing you've ever experienced like that? Or you know anyone who's experienced, like, someone who was encountered somebody, like, you know, or been in a weird place at a weird time?
My mother, when she was 8 months pregnant with me,
Yeah.
broke down outside of an abandoned nursery where one of the members of the Manson family was killing somebody.
Whoa, really?
And had no idea. Yeah, and she had to walk to like a payphone, call my grandfather, and my grandfather came and picked her up. And he was either killing somebody or had already killed her, and she was in there dead while my mom was like 500 feet away from her.
And she found this later.
They
She found
on the
out
news
about this later.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
It
crazy.
was like some rogue member of the Manson family who fled California. Yeah. And killed and dismembered a lady.
That's pretty crazy.
You know, like the little tassels that hang down from your ceiling fan. I lay down, I closed my eyes, and it sounded like someone went up to it, went pop, and hit it against the top of the ceiling fan.
Oh, God.
And every like
they were
30 to
linked.
45 minutes, it just I didn't think that I was asleep. I thought I was awake and that someone was in my room, and I did not fucking sleep.
Maybe it was
that
a
night.
poltergeist.
It could have been. I don't know. Indian burial grounds and shit.
You ever
But it
had
was-
anything like that, Gus?
What, like a supernatural thing?
Yeah.
Not me personally, no.
Go ahead.
know.
What was the other thing?
I think I've told the story on the podcast before, but when I was at school down in Houston, I knew these girls who lived off campus in an apartment.
Brag about it.
One day, it was like a 2-story apartment. It was like downstairs was the living room, the kitchen, there were stairs, and the 2 bedrooms were upstairs. One of the girls was home alone in her room studying. Then she thought she heard her roommate come home. She walked down the stairs, looked around. There was nobody there. So she's like, all right, maybe it was my neighbor or something. So she walked back up the stairs, then turned off the light for the downstairs. And then she said she heard a whisper that said, "We don't like the dark."
Oh,
Really?
Yeah, so she just ran into her room and locked the door.
F that.
And normally, like, I don't believe shit like that, but it's like, she wasn't the kind of person to, like, lie or embellish
that's
or
always
make
the
shit
scary
up.
shit. Yeah.
Right. And, like, she didn't like telling the story. It was always her roommate was like, tell it. She's like, no, I don't want
You
to.
always wonder too, like ghosts when they do that stuff. They know the person's gonna run into like a bathroom and lock the door. It's a ghost and go through the door, right? And it's just like, but the ghosts know that people are gonna run off like that. I always wonder what would happen if like the ghost goes, "We don't like the dark," and turns the light and goes, "What the fuck did you say?" And the ghost's like, "Sorry, I thought this was my house." Like,
are you paying the
what
electricity bill, motherfucker?
What happens if you turn to the ghost and confront it? And
you ever see Poltergeist?
And go at it like, "Hey, motherfucker."
Nah, man. That's how they get you. They
Don't-
take your kid.
You just broke my favorite knick-knack, you piece of shit.
Do you think a ghost to a ghost sounds like he's being really friendly, but passing through the different planes of existence, it gets translated.
Maybe it's an
creepy.
accent thing. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
like
a
a ghost.
cultural difference.
Like a ghost is like, do you want to play? And it comes out as, you want to play? Get out. I've had this thing recently where
Enjoy the sun.
like lucid.
Jeff, didn't you like see ghosts at one of your old places you used to live pretty frequently? Was that you? or-
Yeah. No, I did. I had a I wouldn't say see ghosts frequently, but I had a bunch of experiences at the house I lived in previously, like Millie's childhood home. And that's it was part of what spurred my desire to do the Haunter ghost hunting show, was just like all the kind of weird shit that had happened in that house throughout the course of years and years of experiences. Yeah, it was a very active, if you believe in that kind of thing, it was a very active house. A lot of weird stuff happened there.
Yeah, I've never had any sort of experiences before.
Yeah,
Especially nothing close to what you have. Yeah.
it's weird because you would be able to like communicate, not like you would be able to talk to, like when the house would do stuff, you would talk to it, and then like nobody would talk back, but like shit would happen. I don't know. Like one time I walked into the downstairs bathroom of that house. I guess it was only downstairs back then because we hadn't put the second floor in yet. And walked into the bathroom and I turned the light on, and like the house would just fuck with you sometimes. Like it was mischievous. And I turned
Is it
the light on.
because it was an older house, maybe?
Yeah, well, it was built in the, I don't know, 20s or so. So I imagine quite a few people probably died in it throughout the course of 100 years.
Oh, I meant more like old wiring and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, that too. But we had, you know, I did a lot of work on it over the years. But I went into the bathroom one time and I turned the lights on, and the lights, I was going to go, and I went to the sink, and the lights turned back off. And I went, knock it off, house. And I turned the lights on, and then I turned the faucets on because I was going to like wash my hands or brush my teeth or something. And then the lights turned off, and both towels on the towel rack hit the ground. And there was a towel on the towel rack over the shower behind me. And they all just hit the ground at the same time when the lights turned off the second time. And I went, okay, all right, cool. And then I just left the bathroom alone for a while.
That's like phasmophobia. I was like, I expect you to be like, there's dirty water in the sink.
No, there was no dirty water. There was no Retus fetus, none of that weird stuff. But yeah, it was weird. And that kind of stuff would happen a lot when I lived there. Yeah.
I almost got stabbed and murdered on that hill. when I was like 15, I almost died there.
Oh my!
I was up there. I was up there with some people I knew, and it was summer, so like the school was pretty much closed down, and we were dumb kids. We were teenagers, so we were like throwing rocks from there, trying to hit the football field. And one of the dudes I was with threw a rock, and like it was really far, so he like threw the rock up in the air, and then some dude came walking out of the stadium, like onto the field, and the rock hit really close to him. And he like yelled something at us, and we're being dumb kids. We like yelled back at him and kind of yelling from a distance. And then the dude very calmly leaves the stadium, goes to his car, puts his bag up, then pulls out a giant machete and runs at the hill.
Oh my!
Apparently, you hadn't been the first people to throw rocks.
Yeah, and we were like,
was prepared.
We were like, oh fuck!
He's like, well, this time I got my machete.
We had to run. Like we ran down the hill, and I remember like we ran like building to building, trying to get away from him. And at one point, we split up so he wouldn't find all of us. And I was trying to walk calmly down the street at UTEP, but the school was closed. There was no one there. And I saw his car like come screaming around the corner and like drive past me, and then he like slammed on the brakes and jumped out. And I was like, oh shit! Like he found me.
Yeah, right.
So like it was like something out of a horror movie. Like I ran into the nearest building that was open and was like going through the stairwell, like going up, then trying to go back down and get away from him. And eventually, like after 45
Was there
minutes,
lightning?
I had to get. I got away. No, thank God.
Oh my!
See, I wondered, like that's
lightning and silhouettes.
Yes.
that's childhood, right? Childhood is throwing rocks at shit you shouldn't be throwing rocks at.
Yeah.
And now I wonder.
To the knife.
I have Xbox One at the bottom because it's the biggest, PS4 on top of that, 360 on top of that, and the Kinect on top of the 360.
I was shocked.
It looks awesome.
When I first was setting up my Xbox One at how clear that Kinect video was. Like, you see, it's like, what else does Kinect see? And it sees, like, the infrared and everything.
That scared the crap out of me.
It was like, I was like, holy shit, that's really sharp.
And also, well, I was sat down in the middle of my floor trying to set it up, and I was pressing the buttons so it shows what Kinect can see. One's the kind of thermal-looking one that detects, it bases color on how far you are, so, like, stuff at the front is red, stuff at the back is purple or whatever. I did it infrared, and there were orbs.
What?
There were these orbs floating around me.
Really?
Yeah. Like floating,
dust?
like little lens flares that were just floating around my head, and I was like,
You sure you don't have a tumor?
no, there were 2 of them just floating around me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I couldn't figure out whether it was, spirits or some glitch with my thing. It was weird. I immediately switched it back to.
You don't want to see it?
Yeah.
It's better to just be ignorant than to find out what it actually was.
It was at night as well, and everyone's kind of more scared at night.
Yep.
Right, guys?
Well, do you want to get freaked out? Did you ever hear what JD said when we went over? JD's my oldest son. When we went over to that house, to Geoff and Griffin's house one time when he was like 3, and we went over there and just hung out for a little while, and then later on, I said, like a few weeks later, I was like, hey, I'm going back over there. Do you want to go back over to Geoff and Griffin's? He goes, no. I said, what's wrong? Why don't you want to go over there? He goes, because I'm scared of the lady who stands in the hallway, and I don't like the angry man who lives on the ceiling. And I was like, okay. And Griffin was like, fuck me running. She's like, she was scared of that. Like, that JD had seen a guy who lives in the corner of the ceiling and some lady who stands in the hallway and stares at him. Thanks. Some old lady.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So good luck with that. That'd be your 2 orbs, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, what's the creepiest, weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?
Yeah.
And everyone, it wasn't like Reddit where stuff ranks up. So you would have to like read through everything, and then all of a sudden there'd be a bunch of comments about one. You'd go back and find what people were commenting about. And this guy told this story about traveling, and he was traveling from one state to another. And he decided, you know what? I always go through the highways, and I never go through the mountain roads, which are much shorter. And I would go through the main highway. So why don't I just go through the mountain road and see what that's like? So he's driving at night. He's driving through like these rural Appalachian mountains, and it's the middle of the night. Okay, desolate road. Like he's actually afraid. Like talking about it. This is all from memory here too. Him telling the story. He was afraid that like it was gonna like go down to like 1 lane or like gravel at one point. He's like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have done this. So he's just going this like middle of nowhere 2-lane road, and he comes around this pass up in the mountains. Comes around this pass, and there's a fucking car wreck. And there's these cars, and they're all just there, and the blinkers are on, like the hazards are on, and they're sitting there. And there's bodies from the car wreck laying in the road. And I don't remember if he said he was a paramedic himself or he knew he was a paramedic, and he stopped. He's like, oh shit, and he goes to get out, and he goes, this doesn't look exactly right. Like something about it was like spider sense or whatever. He's tingling or whatever. So he thinks, okay. So he drives very carefully through, and it's in the road. So he drives through the scene of the accident, like around the bodies, like looking at them. They're laying on the ground, bloody or whatever. Decides he's going to pull up a little bit and then come back to it to help people. Like he just thought he would do that. So he does that. He drives slowly through everything, like gets around the bodies and all that stuff, and drives up about 40 or 50 feet, stops, turns around. All the bodies are sitting up and looking at him down the road, and 30 or 40 people have come out of the bushes on the side of the road and are all looking down the road at him. These mountain people in the middle of the night had staged this accident. Mm-hmm. And he just fucking gunned it and got out of there.
Jesus.
So that was just
Christ.
That would fucking that lives with me to this day, him telling that story.
So where was this?
This moment of all he's staring like now 30 total people in the face, like in the rearview mirror, who are looking after him, like they're highlighted by his taillights in the road. And he's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Something similar. I'd heard
just makes you wonder what would happen. What would happen?
I heard of similar things out on the border. I grew up on the border with Mexico, where I'd never heard of the 2 cars faking a crash, but I'd known people who'd come across like a minivan, like in the middle of the road, turned at an angle with the blinkers on, and then people lying across the road blocking it. That they try to get you to stop to take your car, to then there's a bunch of other illegal aliens waiting off on the side of the road who then just get in your car and leave.
But they don't like that's just get your car.
I'll be honest with you. I am the big believer on the show, and I have believed in ghosts my entire life, and had my own experiences. The
Wait,
show
you explain that?
My ghost.
Because you say this in the intro for the show, but
I don't know if I've ever told that story. I can. Yeah, I'll tell in a second. I haven't been holding on to it for anything. Yeah, I saw a ghost when I was a kid, and I'll explain that in a second. But my faith in ghosts is a little bit shaken.
He took pictures of me in front of wood panel.
Yeah.
I was wearing a Rooster Teeth shirt when I met him.
The lovely old man in my neighborhood. Now, when I was a kid, I lived in Jacksonville, Florida at the time, and my parents had taken me to the movies. I remember it being The Lone Ranger, but I might be wrong about that.
How fucking old are you?
Jesus,
okay, go ahead.
Really?
Well, it had been like 82 or something. When did The Lone Ranger come out?
1957.
Yeah, I can't picture that being in color.
80s old Lone Ranger.
Was it like on Saturdays when you played nickel to get in? That
Lone
Tarzan?
Ranger. Are you talking about The Legend of the Lone Ranger?
What year did that come out?
1981?
Yes. So it was
I've never
maybe
heard
that
of
year.
this film. There's an actor named Michael Horse The Legend of the Lone Ranger.
Did he play Silver?
Michael Horst plays Tonto.
So it was that the timeline is a little wonky because I remember it being that movie, but I also remember being about 8. So maybe it was something in 83. But I was living in Florida at the time in Jacksonville, and my parents took me out to my mom and my stepdad took me out to the theater to see a movie, and we came home and we lived in this house on the St. John's Bay where you walked in. It was a super 70s design where like it had like a sunken in living room, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You like take a step down the living room. But you walked into the house and there's just a wall. And then to the left were the bedrooms and to the right was the kitchen. And then right past the wall were 2 open doorways and you'd walk into the sunken in living room. Right?
Got you.
So I walked in the house. My parents took a right to go into the kitchen to get coffee or whatever the fuck they were doing.
You're going to make out.
Maybe they were finger banging or something. I don't know. I don't know what they were doing. I was a kid. But I was going to go to my bedroom. I went the other way, and I think it was probably like, my mom was probably like, Jeffrey, get ready for bed. It's 9 p.m., you know, and you're like, ooh. And so, and I looked over.
Did you ever agree to anything the first time your mom asked, ever?
No,
An only child. Does that ever happen?
I was a prick as a kid. And I looked over to the right, and there was a lady in the living room sitting on a lazy boy, like on the arm of a chair. And she was sitting on the chair like this with her hands in her lap. And I can tell you now that she was Indian or Pakistani. She had like the gear on, like a hijab or whatever it's called, or an abaya is what they called it in Kuwait. And she had like a dot, and she was had like this ornate outfit.
Indeed.
And it's weird to say Indian because I think I said I just saw the Lone Ranger. I don't think it was the Lone Ranger, but she wasn't an American Indian. She was like
she wasn't
from
a Native
India
American.
Indian. Yeah, she wasn't a Native American. And
Sounds like Gus just made fun of American.
and I had never seen an Indian person before, so I didn't know how to articulate that for years. And it wasn't until years later. Yeah, at like 6 or 7 or 8. Yeah, I guess I hadn't. Growing up in Florida,
Between Alabama and Florida.
Yeah, so I didn't understand what I was seeing. She just dressed very oddly to me, and I saw her and I went, oh. So I walked into the room and I got about 10 feet from her and I said, hi, are you looking for my parents? They're in the kitchen. And she just stared at me, and I stared at her for a second, and I just got I felt like the room got cold, and I got this intense feeling of dread. And she just kept staring at me, like she was looking through me. I remember that, and I remember getting really scared. And I said, "Do you want my parents?" And she just kept looking at me, and I started to feel menaced. Would be the only way I can describe it. Like I felt like I was in danger, and I screamed, "Mom, Dad!" And she just kept looking at me, and I turned around and I ran into the kitchen and grabbed my mom and brought them back, and she was gone. And
that's an extended experience.
Yeah.
Then like something out of the corner of your eye.
No, I confronted her, and I was eye to eye with her. And yeah, and that was. And
did you ever look into it further when you were older?
Never
like
sleep again.
Yeah.
Ever.
What was anybody like? Did anybody die there before?
It was a house we were renting. We moved not like maybe 6 months after that or a year after that to another neighborhood. I wouldn't even know. I remember rudimentarily where it is. Maybe my mom could tell me the address, and I could go look into it. But yeah, I don't know. It was a fairly old house. It must have been. I don't know how old it was. This was 1982 or 83. And it had been around for a while. We definitely weren't the first people to live there. The thing that was just odd to me was I had the hardest time articulating to my mom what she was wearing because I didn't understand it, because I'd never seen a person in like whatever that outfit is.
Like a sari or something?
Yeah. And and then like she wasn't in the yard. She wasn't she didn't go through a door. The door was still locked when my parents came in and shut the door. And I ran right by the front door. It was a span of seconds. We came back. I never saw her again. I don't remember experiencing anything else weird about that. Although I will say my mom doesn't remember the experience. I've talked to her about it a couple times, and she's like vaguely, like maybe, but she's not sure. But yeah, that was fucking super scary, and that stuck with me my entire life. I remember it like it was yesterday. That moment. Yeah.